Hello everyone and welcome back to English Factory. My warm greetings to everyone out there. Today I'm gonna do class 12 Flamingo Prose 2 Lost Spring by Anis Chung. Children, childhood is the blooming period of every human being. Then have you ever noticed why do these poor children work when they are supposed to go to school? The answer is very simple. As being born into a poor family and working to earn money to support them and their family. Getting work experience in order to get a better job in the future. Also, to earn pocket money to purchase things they want. Not only this, their family sell them to corrupt people to use them for their work. These poor children are badly exploited. They are made to work against their will at such a tender age. The author Anis Chung has highlighted the pitiable situation of two child laborers. Let us read about the author first. Anis Chung, born at Rourkela, India in 1964, is an Indian woman author, journalist and columnist. She belongs to an aristocratic family of poets. Her most noted work, Unveiling India, was a detailed chronicle of the lives of women in India. Let us now read the central theme of the story. The theme of this chapter is the grinding poverty and the traditions which condemn poor children to a life of exploitation. The two stories taken together depict the plight of street children forced into labor early in life and denied the opportunity of schooling. Children, as I told you earlier, that this chapter contains two stories. Let us read about the story 1. Sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. Here we are going to read about Sahib, who's a rag picker. The author Anis Chung comes across Sahib every morning. Sahib left his home in Dhaka a long time ago. He's trying to sponge gold in the heaps of garbage in the neighborhood. The author asks Sahib why he does that. Sahib mutters that he has nothing else to do. There is no school in his neighborhood. He is poor and works barefooted. There are 10,000 other shoeless rag pickers like Sahib. They live in Simapuri, on the outer edge of Delhi, in structures of mud with roofs of tin and tarpaulin, but devoid of sewage, drainage or running water. They are squatters who came from Bangladesh back in 1971. These rag pickers have lived here for more than 30 years without identity cards or permit. They have right to vote. With ration cards, they get grains. Food is more important for survival than identity. Wherever they find food, they pitch their tents that become transit homes. Children grow up in them and become partners in survival. In Simapuri, survival means rag picking. Through the years, rag picking has acquired the proportions of a fine art. Garbage to them is gold. It is their daily bread and a roof over their heads. Sometimes Sahib finds a rupee or even a 10 rupee note in the garbage heap. Then there is a hope of finding more. Garbage has a meaning different from what it means to their parents. For children, it is wrapped in wonder. For the elders, it is a means of survival. One winter morning, the author finds Sahib standing by the fenced gate of a neighborhood club. He is watching two young men playing tennis. They are dressed in white. Sahib likes the game, but he is content to watch it standing behind the fence. Sahib is wearing discarded tennis shoes that look strange over his discolored shirt and shorts. For one who has walked barefoot, even shoes with a hole is a dream come true, but tennis is out of his reach. This morning, Sahib is on his way to the milk booth. In his hands is a steel canister. He works in a tea stall. He's paid 800 rupees and all his meals. Sahib is no longer his master as he was a rag picker before. His face has lost the carefree look. He doesn't seem happy working at the tea stall. You know why, children? Because his freedom is deprived. He cannot go anywhere he desires now. Let us now read the second story, I Want to Drive a Car. The author comes across Mukesh in Firozabad. His family is engaged in bangle making. But Mukesh insists on being his own master. I will be a motor mechanic, he announces. I will learn to drive a car, he says. Firozabad is famous for its bangles. Every other family in Firozabad is engaged in making bangles. Families have spent generations working around furnaces, welding glass, making bangles for women. None of them know that it is illegal for children like Mukesh to work in the glass furnaces with high temperatures in dingy cells without air and light. This logged their daylight hours, often losing the brightness of their eyes. Even the law is enforced. It could get Mukesh and 20,000 children out of the hot furnaces. They walked down stinking lanes choked with garbage, past homes that remain hovels with crumbling walls, wobbly doors and no windows. Humans and animals coexist there. They enter a half-built shack. One part of it is thatched with dead grass. A weak young woman is cooking evening meal over a firewood stove. She is the wife of Mukesh's elder brother and already in charge of 3 men, her husband, Mukesh, and their father. The father is a poor bangle maker. Despite long years of hard labor, first as a tailor and then as a bangle maker, he has failed to renovate a house and send his 2 sons to school. All he has managed to do is teach them what he knows, the art of making bangles. Mukesh's grandmother has watched her own husband go blind with the dust from polishing the glass of bangles. She says that it is his destiny. She implies that God-given lineage can never be broken. They have been born in the caste of bangle makers and have seen nothing but bangles of various colors. Boys and girls sit with fathers and mothers welding pieces of colored glass into circles of bangles. They work in dark hutments next to lines of flames of flickering oil lamps. Their eyes are more adjusted to the dark than to the light outside. They often end up losing their eyesight before they become adults. Next, the author talks about Savita, who's a young girl in a drab pink dress. She sits alongside an elderly woman. She's soldering pieces of glass. Her hands move mechanically like the tongs of a machine. Perhaps she does not know the sanctity of the bangles she helps make. The old woman beside her has not enjoyed even one full meal in her entire lifetime. Her husband is an old man with flowing beard. He knows nothing except making bangles. He has made a house for the family to live in. He has a roof over his head. Little has moved with time in Firozabad. Families do not have enough to eat. They do not have money to do anything except carry on the business of making bangles. The young men echo the lament of their elders. They have fallen into the vicious circle of middlemen who trapped their fathers and forefathers. Years of mind-numbing toil have killed all initiative and the ability to dream. They are unwilling to get organized into a cooperative. They fear that they will be hauled up by the police, beaten and dragged to jail for doing something illegal. There is no leader among them. No one helps them to see things differently. All of them appear tired. They talk of poverty, apathy, greed, and injustice. 2 distinct worlds are visible. One, families caught in poverty and burdened with the stigma of caste in which they are born. The other, a vicious circle of moneylenders, the middlemen, the policemen, the keepers of law, and politicians. Together they have imposed the baggage on the child that he cannot put it down. He accepts it as naturally as his father. To do anything else would mean to dare, and daring is not part of his growing up. The author is cheered when she senses a flash of it in Mukesh, who wants to be a motor mechanic. Children, you know what is the common theme in the story of Sahib and Mukesh? You know, the 2 protagonists of the chapter, Sahib-e-Alam and Mukesh, lose their childhood while carrying the burden of poverty and illiteracy. In the bleak stories of exploitation, the author finds glimpses of resilience and hope. It's time to do the important questions of this chapter. Question number 1. What could be some of the reasons for the migration of people from villages to cities? Answer. People migrate from villages to cities in search of a better life. They want to earn money so that they can lead a good life and rear their children in a better way. As cities have more opportunities for work, this makes them migrate from the villages to these big cities. Question number 2. Would you agree that promises made to poor children are rarely kept? Why do you think this happens in the incidents narrated in the text? Answer. Yes, I agree that the promises made to poor children are rarely fulfilled. In the story, the writer jokingly offers the ragpicker boy to join a school that she would open. In fact, she does not intend to open a school. She speaks mindlessly, but the boy takes it to be true and later asks her if the school has opened. There are many such hollow promises in the boy's life because the person who makes the promise never intends to fulfill it. Moving on to next question. Question number 3. What forces conspire to keep the workers in the bangle industry of Firozabad in poverty? Answer. The writer tells us that the bangle makers of Firozabad are poverty stricken. They are burdened by the fact of the particular caste in which they are born, bangle makers. They have to continue the traditional profession. Further, the society has formed a harsh circle around them. The moneylenders, middlemen, policemen, law-keepers, officers and politicians all together form a barrier around them and tie them in the grip of poverty. They cannot escape from it. Question number 4. How, in your opinion, can Mukesh realize his dream? Answer. Mukesh dared to dream and wanted to become a motor mechanic. He wanted to drive cars too. He took the initial step by aspiring to do something different from the family business. I think that Mukesh can realize his dream with determination and hard work. Question number 5. Mention the hazards of working in the glass bangles industry. Answer. The poor bangle makers in Firozabad work in dangerous conditions. The furnaces have very high temperatures and no ventilation. Hence, they are prone to ailments like lung cancer. While polishing the bangles, the dust harms their eyes and many lose their vision. They remain in dark for long hours and so are unable to see during the daytime. Moving on to the last question. Question number 6. Why should child labor be eliminated and how? Answer. Forcing a child to work is a crime. This is so in order to prevent exploitation of children. If forced to work, children cannot enjoy their childhood. They cannot get proper education. Also, when they are forced into hazardous works, they get ailments at a young age. This destroys their future. Their parents overlook all these facts as they need money. So, the government has to become proactive and take measures to check child labor and enforce the laws strictly. Here I come to the end of today's lesson. Overcoming poverty is not a task of charity, it is an act of justice, rightly said by Nelson Mandela. Hope this chapter is clear to you. Kindly like, share and subscribe my channel and press the bell icon for notification of my upcoming videos. Thank you and stay blessed.